As you may or may not know, learning a language takes a lot of time. No matter what all those language learning courses and language apps tell you about being fluent in a month, or even worse, fluent in a week, that is not what reality looks like. And to not spend all that time learning a language in misery and pain, I want to share with you 5 essential habits and traits that can help you make your language learning journey more enjoyable. Maybe you never specifically thought about them, but most of these are honestly no-brainers if you take a moment to think about why they're so beneficial, especially as self-learners. As a byproduct, you'll end up learning the language faster than if you didn't adopt these habits. Out of the 4 skills, speaking, listening, reading, and writing, which one do you think you should spend the most time on? Which one do you think is the most valuable for your overall language improvement? Of course, this partly depends on what your goal is, but generally speaking, regardless of what language you're trying to learn, regardless of what level you're at, and even regardless of your goal, reading is the skill that will have the biggest overall impact on your language skills. That is because you can actively, and this is the important part, actively and attentively consume a lot more language in its written form than, let's say, a TV or a podcast, while also retaining the ability to look things up and process what you're taking in. That's why the first essential habit that you should try to build is a reading habit. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy like 3 hours every single day. It would honestly already be super beneficial if you just read 20 to 30 minutes, even every other day is perfectly fine, and you'd notice an immense improvement. This ties in with what I just said and is especially important for self-learners, and that is consistency. But I'm not only talking about consistency in the sense that you do things regularly, which is obviously really, really important as well. But I'm also talking about consistency in the material that you consume. What I mean by that is that in order to internalize something, to really learn and understand something, you need to look at it more than just once. This goes for a lot of skills, not just language learning, but in language learning, literally every single aspect of a language, you have to look at them more than once in order to internalize them. Everything from learning how the sounds work to understanding how verbs conjugate and memorizing vocabulary and learning to use grammar structures. When taking language classes, usually what we learn is divided into chapters or unit, and we'll literally spend a whole week just learning about the supermarket or learning how to express a wish. But as self-learners, we don't really get that unless we really strictly monitor the things that we learn. But obviously, if you spend one day listening to a podcast about how people spend their Saturday evenings, and then the next day you read an article about food poisoning, and then the third day you try to learn the past tense, and you never revisit these topics, you will not retain as much information as you could have if you had actually gone back to one of these topics and reviewed them in a different media. So if you create a study plan for yourself, make sure that you plan in these review sessions and that whatever topic you're interested in and you want to learn about, to engage with it on multiple levels through multiple types of media. You could, for example, watch a YouTube video on a topic and then also read an article. Or you have an italki session with your tutor and then also learn a little bit in a grammar book. That way, you can be sure that a lot more information will be retained. This next one is really about yourself and your situation, and it is critical self-reflection. I know it is easy to start watching a show and you're not really paying attention, and then at the same time you're also doing your Anki cards, but you're not really paying attention to those either. And then you made a goal that you wanted to read every day, so you open the book and you really, really want to read, but then you just don't. You just read the first sentence and something gets in between you and the book and you just put it aside, and at the end of the day you still make your little crosses in your habit tracker, even though none of these activities were actually done properly. And another day goes by and another day goes by and you keep repeating these same patterns, and at the end of the month you still don't feel like you made any progress. And then at the end of the year, you feel like you tried so hard and you wonder why you can't make any progress. Well, the question is, did you actually try hard? I mean, having a 365-day Anki streak is amazing, really. Just that in language learning, quantity without quality is pretty much wasted time. I know that in some communities, having huge numbers such as the words you read or the sentences you mined or your Anki streak, and then in other communities you have things like cute notes and pretty textbooks and all that, are things that are really desirable in those communities. But if the only reason that you have those is to show off and to be admired by other learners, then you're not really gaining anything. So take a moment and reflect on whether you've been honest with yourself about how you're learning, about how much you're learning, and whether what you're currently doing still serves the goal that you're trying to achieve. And if the answer to that is no, you should readjust your routine, your study habits, whatever it is that you need to change to get you back on track. I already kind of mentioned it, but I think a lot of people underestimate the power of being attentive when trying to learn a language. Especially with immersion learning currently gaining a lot of popularity, there are people that have the TV or a podcast or a YouTube video just running in the background while they go about their lives. And they amass crazy amount of hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours every single day. But those hour counts do not transfer to their language skills. And why is that? Because they're not paying attention, they're not looking things up, they don't process what's going on. And I'm not saying they're not learning anything. I'm saying that with such crazy amount of hours stacked up, we should be seeing a lot more language progress from those people than we currently are. I think there is a variety of reasons for this, but one of them has got to be the fact that our brain retains information better if we engage with it and if we interact with it in a meaningful way rather than just have it go 1 ear in, the other ear out. So pay attention when learning, not just when learning a language, but anything really. Pay attention, be curious, ask questions, and you'll be sure to retain information a lot better. And the last one, which I don't really know how to categorize, but it is so important to just get started, to just do. I get that you want to be as prepared as you possibly can for this long journey. And I'm not telling you to not do your research or to not try to optimize things. You should definitely do that. But it can be so easy to fall into the trap of wanting to find an even better method, wanting to buy yet another textbook to make sure that you have the best possible textbook on the market, to try to plan even more, or to try to find an even better tutor, and to know yet another trick to learn a language. And then to end up never actually starting to learn the language. Personally, I love talking about language learning as an activity in itself, not about the specific languages. And I love discussing the different approaches and why one thing is better than the other thing. But at the end of the day, if you're serious about learning a language and you really want to be proficient, you just have to start doing the activity of language learning. There's just no way around it. And there you have it, 5 essential habits and traits for learning a language. I'm curious to know what you think of these, and if there's anything else you would say is essential to learning a language. So leave a comment down below, and if you like this video, also give it a like. And I'll be back next week with some exciting Q1 language update and Q2 goals. So definitely stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then.